Today, I have the big honor of having Saoud Rizwan, founder of Cline, with me on the show. Welcome, Saoud.
Thank you, Per. It's an honor to be a part of your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and we are so excited for this upcoming hackathon. We are doing a Cline AI-assisted enterprise coding hackathon in Sweden, Stockholm, August 14th. And it's really a lot of talk about this event already.
Yeah, we're excited to be a part of it. And we at Cline are we have been working with this incredible community of developers, both on the open source side of things, but also just developers using Cline to build all sorts of cool projects um, love to share kind of the things that we've learned along the way with our community and with how our users are using agentic AI at your event. So we're really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, and we have developers on the waiting list trying to get in, and we also have executives from the largest companies in the region: IKEA, H&M, Volvo, Spotify, SE-banken. Everybody's coming and see what's possible with AI-assisted enterprise coding. So, yeah.
Incredible.
Cool. But where are you today? You're not in Sweden today, Saud. Where are you and how's the weather?
No, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in San Francisco. I actually don't know what the weather's like because I don't go outside too much. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of long nights. This has been, the craziest. Now 1 year of my life. We're actually celebrating the 1 year anniversary since we launched Cline on the VS Code marketplace.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess to dive into the story a little bit more, it started out as a side project for a hackathon. So this was 10 days after the Claude 3.5 Sonnet model came out. Anthropic was hosting a Build with Claude hackathon in June 2024, and none of the other AI coding tools at the time took advantage of sort of the nuances of Claude 3.5 Sonnet, its ability to comprehend long context really well, and its ability to think step by step, and the agentic reasoning idea was just this very foreign concept that they talked a lot about in their model addendum, and I think it they mentioned something about like an internal tool that they were using to test this model's agentic capabilities, but nothing that was available to the public, or nothing that I felt I could really use at the time that took advantage of that sort of thing. And so that is what kind of instigated the first version of the product, which at the time was called Claude Dev. And yeah, I actually ended up losing the hackathon, which was super sad.
Losing, like your last place?
Not last place. I don't. A lot of people applied, and to be fair, I don't think they had time to review all the submissions. I think that's the excuse. I lost the hackathon. I posted about Claude Dev on Reddit, and I open sourced the product, and then things kind of took off from there. I think there's a couple of things about Claude Dev that really resonated with a lot of people. One, it was the ability to kind of see like the guts of the harness. So being able to kind of see the prompts that go into this sort of thing, and kind of the agentic loop paradigm was like really new. So it was something that was useful for people to see kind of how it worked, because it can get really expensive once you start letting these agents kind of run autonomously. The requests start to add up, and so that was the other key part of it, was being able to see how much each request costs, and the transparency around the API usage, and also the control to bring your own API key. And one, know where your data is being sent, which is really important to, I think, the security conscious users that don't want to be sending plain text code and IP and API keys and security tokens across the internet and in plain text essentially to these models. And two, it made it clear that the Cloud Dev project is incentivized to build essentially the best product and not to capture margin on some inference subscription plan. So there's no upcharging inference. There's no subscription plan trying to dilute the product and capture some sort of profit margin. It is you pay for the intelligence that you use in the product, and that kind of aligned incentive kind of made developers more comfortable with spending potentially hundreds of dollars a day and really pushing these incredibly powerful models to their full potential and using their full context and letting them think step by step and create hundreds of requests in succession. And that was what really provided that first AGI moment to a lot of people. And that's what kind of sparked this like organic evangelism for the product, and things just kind of blew up from there, where a lot of our marketing has mostly just been developers sharing their love for Cloud Dev and Cline. And and so fast forward a few months after the hackathon, I raised some funding. I bought tickets to San Francisco. At the time, I was living in Indiana. It's the Midwest in the U.S. With my family, and it's you're not going to find people to build a AI tech startup in Indiana. So I wanted to move to the heart of where all of it was happening, and find people that were just as passionate about the space as I was. And so I moved out here, and we are now 24 people and celebrating our 1-year anniversary. And it really only feels like it's just getting started.
Fantastic. And now we're coming to Stockholm. Now we have to move here. It's happening here too.
It's happening there too. No, I'd love to visit. I'm still I'm still super bummed out that I couldn't actually come and be a part of the event there.
We'll do another one. This will be a fantastic success, and then AWS want to host the next one, I guess. So
I'd love to be a part of that next one for sure.
There's many chances now, and so let's talk about the category first. AI assisted coding for someone who's a little bit new to this, and what is it, and how is it changing the game for enterprise software development?
Yeah, that was never the intent right off the bat, not necessarily to be a coding agent for enterprise, but something that worked across the board. But essentially, building the agent, I took a very generalized approach. It should work with any size of project for any kind of developer, any use case, any tech stack. And the incredible thing about these models is that they do feel like magic. They can pretty much do anything and accomplish any kind of work to some degree, and not being too constraining with the prompts or too constraining with the product experience or the type of work you could do with it. And so that kind of opened up the floodgate into seeing all kinds of developers from the side project weekend vibe coders all the way up to the serious enterprise developers. We're using Cline in their very large repositories. And I think the reason that that Cline was able to work so well in these larger projects is that so the first part of it is one of the biggest limitations these models have is their context window. So for example, with the cloud models, the 200,000K context window is not enough to stuff in all the files and a big repository that you might see at one of these organizations. And so some tools, they use things like RAG to try to search through this corpus of code and text, but Cline takes this other approach where it kind of acts the same way that a new developer to a project might work, where they explore the file structure. They explore the names of the classes and the functions. They use a search tool to look around for implementations for things. And so just putting myself in the shoes of a new developer entering a project for the first time, how they might explore code to try to figure out how to accomplish a task. I expose those things as tools to this agent. So for example, it has the ability to view an AST for your project, essentially a tree of the names of all the classes and functions. It has the ability to look at your folder structure. It has the ability to read files. It has the ability to use grep to search across your project for certain patterns and keywords. And providing these tools to these models, it essentially allowed them this ability to agentically explore for all the most relevant context and getting work done in really big projects, and only sort of pulling in the data that it needs, and not the entire code base, essentially. And so, for example, a pattern you might see is, it starts by looking at the README to kind of understand at a high level, any sort of information it might need to set up the project. And if you asked it to, in a website to change the color of a nav bar, it knows to, look for, to essentially zoom into any directories that might have to do with the front end, and to be very diligent about the context that it feeds into itself. And you kind of have to experience it for yourself, just watching these models sort of crawl around your code is a little bit, it feels a little bit like magic. And I think that's really why it's Cline has worked so well for these really large code bases, is it starts by essentially consuming all the language of a code base, not the code itself, but kind of the way that we like to sort of categorize and organize our code. When you for example, name a class or a function, you think of it as a component in a system as a whole, and kind of where it fits in the larger picture. And so that language is like incredibly important for the agent to figure out what's relevant context to read or not, to accomplish work. So that is the first part as to why Cline works really well with enterprise code bases, and the other part of it is the security aspect of it too. I think there is a lot of this is a totally new way to develop software, and so there's a lot of experimenting and getting your feet wet with this thing, and so it's hard to ask enterprise developers and organizations to jump through all the hoops and over all the red tape to work with these agents and send off their code and IP and sensitive information, without getting a good sense of if it's even worth it for them, the benefit of this sort of thing in the first place. And so Cline got super out of the way of all of that and essentially said, bring her an API key, you control where your data gets sent, nothing has to go through our own servers. In fact, you could even fork us and remove anything that you don't feel that comfortable with, because we're open source. And just reduce the friction to getting started with agentic AI as much as possible for these developers. And that was also an incredibly important thing to help get adoption in these organizations. So yeah.
And to sum it up a little bit, are there specific coding activities or tasks that Cline is particularly optimized for?
Particularly optimized for, I'd say that Cline works better for the more complex tasks. If you want to be more in the code and are making fine-grained surgical edits to to a single file, for example, there's other better tools for something like that. For example, Cursor has put a lot of effort into their tab autocomplete and their Q&A functionality, and is more suited for, I think, this paradigm of when you're more like in the weeds. And Cline is sort of this at a high level, almost like a thought partner. What is the work you want to get done? Let's put together a plan of attack, and I'll go off and do it, and essentially make all the changes across your entire code base I need to accomplish this work. And so I think those two modalities complement each other really well. So I wouldn't even say that in the space as a whole, Cline is necessarily an either-or solution with all our competitors. I think it complements all the other tools in the space, in that we're going really deep on what that really futuristic agentic experience looks like, and in kind of allowing us to focus on the best agentic experience. I think people have found that they end up using Cline and Cursor together a lot. In fact, that's how I do a lot of my own development. Is when I want to whenever I start working in a new project, or scaffold something new, or want to get whatever sort of work done, I start off with working with the agent. Go off and try to get this work done, give it some constraints, maybe have a back and forth about what it is exactly that I want to get done, if I'm not even sure it off the bat, and then I'll clean up if I need to, or build on top of the work that it did using Cursor features.
So Cline and Cursor go very well together. And is there misunderstandings out there in the market? And all YouTube videos, they always put this versus this, and then there's a battle. But maybe it's more like you saying this and this for this kind of use cases. Or if that's how maybe more mature people sees it, that it's complementary and not just a collision. That's more like a marketplace battle.
Yeah, no, I think it's entertaining for it makes for good content trying to pit these things against each other. But Cline is an extension, it's not an IDE, and that's kind of made it really accessible to a lot of developers, is that Cline works in all the VS Code forks. I think the this sense that forking VS Code to provide the best agentic experiences, it might have been true at one point when there was a lot of friction in working with the VS Code plugin SDKs and APIs. But the VS Code team has done an incredible job of making their tooling more accessible to plugin developers like Cline. So, for example, a few months after we released our first version of the extension, the VS Code team released the capability for extension developers to read terminal contents, which was really important for Cline. I mean, that's its bread and butter, is its ability to run these commands autonomously and then be able to read the output as it's streamed in. And that wasn't possible, over a year ago, because that API was essentially in this proposal hidden development phase. And I think there wasn't as much of a need for exposing an API like that to extensions. But once I think the Microsoft VS Code team recognized that these agents need access to these sorts of things in the product, otherwise people will fork us and go somewhere else. That's when they started exposing these APIs to extensions like Cline. So yeah, we work very well with Cursor and Windsurf and VS Code and all the other forks, and I think
that's more interesting content, how this works together for specific use cases. That is something we could dig into and showcase. And there's also, when we're speaking about hackathons, we always, for this hackathon, both Couchbase, Red Panda, Kong, Curity, and some other tech partners are shipping in, so you can build cool stuff with Cline. You never isolate in this kind of things. It's always stitching together things, right?
Right. It's there's this is such a new space there's so many there's so much sort of like opportunity to kind of do things with your own flavor.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I think people will kind of use whatever they feel is the best tool for the job. So, you know, you see this like this paradigm of like background agents and you know, I think it's not even that, you know, something like a Codex or, you know, Devon is necessarily a replacement or an alternative to Cline as much as it is just another tool in your
Mm.
set. It's just, you know, it might be better suited for, you know, certain kinds of work, for example, writing tests or something you don't want to be as involved in. Whereas Cline, it's kind of the point of interaction that I think developers have really resonated with, where there's a lot of engagement, for example, in the planning phase, and then being able to interact with all the various APIs using MCP servers. So I was recently reading this article someone wrote about how they connect Cline to their Sentry account, their GitHub account, and they essentially ask Cline the agent to pull in any error stack trace information from Sentry. If a bug comes up in production, and try to use that context to fix the bug in their code base, and then use the connection to GitHub to open up the pull request. And they can kind of do their you know, entire developer workflow using natural language, with Cline being that single point of contact.
Mm.
And so you don't have to sort of like leave, you know, this environment that you're really comfortable in VS Code, having to interact with all these different services. So I think, you know, there's a different that all these different tools have different purposes and different use cases. And we're getting into being that single point of contact, that thought partner, that really engaging sort of agent that kind of helps you understand what it is, the work that you're trying to get done, and then go off and do it. And then yeah, we work really well with background agents like Devon, and the more surgical, in the weeds code editing platforms like Cursor. And so I use all these sorts of things together.
So when companies are buying Cline for the first time, is it often like one developer trying it out and everybody sees like, wow, this is going really well, or is it a team decision, or what is a typical process from enterprises?
I think the story usually goes like this. There's usually a team, or usually maybe even a single person that's like very AI forward, that is playing around with all these different tools and trying to figure out, you know, what the best thing is to help promote in their organization. And you know, going back to that developer like advocacy that we were able to get really early on, and sort of the goodwill that we've created with our open source community, and just being able to tap into sort of the ingenuity and the open source community that we've been able to create. I think it has all allowed us to get kind of distribution with organizations that has been incredibly helpful in spreading the word and letting people get their feet wet with agentic development. Starts with these AI forward teams and these organizations hearing about Cline, playing around with it, and sort of spreading the word, and, you know, to the rest of their teams. And we've actually been, over the last few months, have been inundated with sort of all of these table stake enterprise features. Like we need a dashboard, we need to, you know, we need help onboarding, you know, team members, and we need invoices, and so we've been working on just providing sort of the basic essentials for these organizations to use Cline at kind of a larger scale. And I think there is definitely like an enterprise piece to this, and you know, that's kind of there's a lot of pull there, but I think it's going to be incredibly important to balance being able to like move quickly in this space and continuing to build a tool that developers love. And so that's something that I think we have the advantage in being open source, can tap into, you know, a large community of developers to help us stay ahead of the curve, and to, make sure that we always have this we always strike this really good balance of providing a really good enterprise experience, but also being quick on our feet and adapting to the space and building the best tool for developers.
Yeah, yeah. And to our events, both developers and executives come together and explore things. So that's a little bit our unique take on this. And the atmosphere is really, really cool. So when it comes to business impact, because that's always where it ends, what kind of business impacts are you seeing so far? And can you share some concrete example where a client delivered really, measurable ROI for enterprise customers?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now that anybody that tells you those ROI statistics, it's like a load of baloney. It's not real. It's fake news. You can look at things like lines of code written or numbers of PRs, but really it just comes down to just talk to your developers and see what they're getting the most benefit out of, what they love using the most. And it's hard to measure that, but from our conversations with customers, I mean, the easiest way to kind of put that into something that's easy to understand at an executive level is how much something like Cline speeds up development workflows. So, for example, one team we talked to said it's sped up their ability to complete sprints by pretty much twice as much. A lot of their development efforts. So they described their development efforts going into two parts essentially. One of them being understanding the work, sort of communicating and collaborating with their team about all the different requirements and constraints, and then the other half of it was actually implementing it once you understood those constraints. And the implementing part of it is now essentially trivial with agents like Cline. You can get it done essentially within a single day if you have all the right requirements and understand the vision and what it is you're trying to build, which I think is honestly the more difficult and also the more entertaining part of being a software engineer. So really that's what I think this whole agentic development paradigm has allowed, is for engineers to focus on the more sort of tasteful architectural decision making and less on the implementation details and writing the code itself. Having a high level understanding of the code that's being produced and making sure that it's being built on a strong foundation, I think are all important things. But I think what developers found difficult or useful to be really good at even a year ago, for example, writing algorithms and things like tests and things like that aren't as relevant or as important as today, where you can really leave all the implementation details to these agents, and you just need to have a really strong sense of the vision of the product and what it is you're trying to build. And it allows for developers to focus more on the communication and collaboration around these things. And it's hard to measure the ROI on that, but generally it speeds up development quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what you hear all the time, and amazing, incredible. And how do you start? If there's a team, there's an evangelist, let's try Cline, and let's do this. Let's give it a real shot. What's the typical pilot process? So how do teams usually start? And are there some pitfalls from your experience? What's best practice here?
Yeah, you can just visit our website, cline.bot, or just look up Cline in the VS Code Marketplace, or look up Cline on Google, and you'll find links to our GitHub and things like that. We are on X. You can find us at Cline, where we share a lot of demos of the product, how our community is using it, entertaining things that we're finding in what we're learning building this coding agent. And for teams smaller than 10 people, you can get started for free in using our dashboard features, our budgeting and onboarding, security and invoicing capabilities with the product. But but anyone can just download the extension from the VS Marketplace, bring in any API key that they want with whatever provider that they're using. And really, I just encourage people to just play around with it. Like feel, I think a lot of developers, at least when they're starting out in their careers, it comes from this place of like intellectual curiosity, and so try to monkey your way around an area of software development that you've always been really intimidated by. I think that's always an entertaining way to kind of see the power of using something like these agents. Is if you're a backend developer, maybe spend a weekend working on a front end project using Cline. And I think the educational aspect of watching this like expert coding agent and seeing its thought process and how it does the work and being able to like look over its shoulders to some degrees about what it's doing is incredibly educating and entertaining. And I think I think that's really, at least for me, that was really when I felt this sort of AGI experience where I was learning from the agent. I never felt anything like that before. It was incredible.
Really good advice there. And time flies. I have like 2 questions more. And what would you tell a team or a manager or even a developer hesitant to try out this approach in an enterprise environment? What could be like what's your advice to someone who's like, no, we don't want to try this?
Yeah. So my advice is it's free, it's secure, it's easy to get started. You control where your data gets sent. You don't have to. You don't even have to sign up for an account with us. You can, if you have an Anthropic API key or a Bedrock connection or a GCP Vertex account, whatever your inference cloud provider is, you can connect to them directly and just get started using Cline right away. And just get your feet wet with it and experiment with it and get a sense for how the tool works. There's no commitment required, and there's no sort of security concerns that you'd have to worry about because you control end-to-end where your data gets sent.
Cool. And we will send this interview, this podcast, to the participants that are signing up for the hackathon. And the challenge is build a MCP server that provides context or takes an action to enable enterprise developers to generate better software faster. So if they see this now, they will participate in a team in this hackathon August 14. What's your advice to them to get up to speed with Cline? Is it like the same advice, or do you have something special to say to them participating in the hackathon?
Participating in the hackathon, use Cline at the hackathon. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's a requirement.
Yeah, no, Cline. We actually, host our own hackathons, and the challenge is less about actually making the project and more trying to figure out what it is you want to build. So I think there's all these cool MCP servers people have come out with in the ecosystem. So building something new and something fun, I think that's the real challenge here in this hackathon, I think. So on that note, the MCP ecosystem has been this other sort of open source ecosystem that has been like incredible to see start from Anthropic announcing this weird MCP thing that people had no idea about to now seeing all these developers contributing to the space, and I think MCP is this weird acronym that most people don't really quite understand or know how it works. And so watching Cline build an MCP server and sort of seeing him run the commands and create the files and write the code and creating MCP is an incredibly educating experience and understanding how it works and how it's useful and what it means to these agents. So even use Cline to to create an MCP server that connects to a weather API where you can ask an agent to get the latest weather. I think even just looking over Cline's shoulders and seeing him do things from scratch and creating the MCP and then installing the MCP into itself, and then actually calling that MCP tool all in that single conversation is it kind of connects the dots about how this stuff works and why it's useful.
Fantastic. And maybe we can make the winning teams record the demos and you can watch them and have like a reaction video what they were building at this amazing event coming up with you, Cline, here in Stockholm. That would be a really good thing.
I would love that.
Yeah. Saoud, it was such an honor to have you here. Fantastic energy. I really, really like Cline and you and all the team. Everybody that I met on Cline, such fantastic humans. And we're so looking forward to this. And thanks so much for taking the time and share your experience and your journey here that continues for an hour.
Thank you so much, Per. It was an honor to be a part of your podcast, and thank you for inviting us to your event. And we're really excited about bringing Cline to more enterprise developers, and we're hard at work at listening to all their needs and requirements. So we know that there's a long journey ahead in educating developers in this new world of agentic software development. And Cline is on this mission to build the best coding agent, but also educate the world on how to use it. So follow us on Twitter and check out our blog and our website. We're always posting information about interesting new workflows we see in our community and tips and tricks about how to best use the product. But yeah, thank you for inviting us to the podcast. This was fun.
Fantastic, Saoud. And now I will press stop recording.